All right, folks, we are back. And yes, we have a special guest. John has been pushed out to the side. Bye-bye, John. And we now have Dave from MiniWarGaming who's with us. And we are going to be talking all things Excellent and Ravaged Star, which is your new project that is on GameFound right now as you're looking to fund all of those rules and everything else in between. I think the best way to start, Dave, is just go for it, man. Tell us what Ravaged Star is all about and why you dived into it. So,
Ravaged Star is a tabletop miniature war game. Now, before it started as just a miniature range, which was this right here, we see some PVC plastic from the very first campaign. But right now, it's a game that is being developed. MiniWarGaming in-house here. We're doing the rules development. We're doing all of that stuff, and it's feedback from the community. So we are collating suggestions, ideas, rules mechanics, and amalgamizing it into one cohesive rule set that everyone can have a bit of a voice in, and seeing like what kind of things they'd like to see as part of the gaming experience. Yeah. And that's it. It's all for fun. The idea is that we're removing barriers to entry to get into tabletop gaming. So what does that mean, barriers to entry? Well, one of them is if there's a very first time person in a gaming store, hobby club, heck, a buddy at your house, and you want to introduce them to gaming, something that we have found through feedback that might be a little overwhelming is the assembly process of miniatures. So it's like, before we play this game, we got to assemble the minis. What do you mean? How long does that take? How do we do that?
Yeah, by the way, go get all these tools.
Go get all these tools. You can borrow mine, but really you should get your own. So there's a lot of feedback, right? So we put a vote out, and it was 20,000 votes on a poll, pre-assembled versus not assembled, and it was 83% of that. And so what we've done is we've just listened. So Ravaged Star comes pre-assembled in the box. You just play right away. So it kind of functions like a board game that way, where you just right out of the box you play, but it feels like a miniature war game because of the scale. You can have a lot of units. You can have as much, it's scaled. The rule set scales where you can have small squads, kill team sized forces, or you can have multiple units, about a dozen each side, or you can even go like large if you really, really wanted to, right? So it scales that way according to your desire and flavor that you choose to engage in on the tabletop. And it's made from PVC plastic miniatures. So this right here is a finished one from the factory, and we posted the video, and every time it gets me, man. So this is finished PVC from the factory, right? And so this is the durability of it. And this, you would never do this with your minis. Why would you be so insane as to do this, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh gods.
Yeah, it's like no. But see, the thing is, we have this in mind where, because a lot of us have kids at home running around and whatever, and so we want them to engage with us in the hobby, but at the same time we don't want them to wreck stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, do this, but don't, just be careful and make sure you don't do that. But please do this with me. And so there's this bit of a duality about it, right? So one of the feedbacks was, yeah, let's have more people involved, and it's easier not be so tense all the time about breaking stuff. So what better way than to just make it out of a material where this is like a tendril, by the way. You would easily snap this in another type of miniature. But this is like the comfort level of like just taking out that stress, because that is like energy projected. Or it's like, hey, do this hobby with me, but be really careful, right? So it's like there's that versus, dude, come have fun. Let's do this. If I knock it over as an adult, cool. If my kid knocks it over, that's expected, right? So they're
gaming pieces, aren't they, man? It kind of works. Yeah.
And they take really well to paint as well. So it's not like this thing that isn't a familiar hobby model, right? You can do the exact same thing you would normally on it as you would any other miniature, hard plastic miniature.
They look super intricate. Anything that I've seen of them so far, and it looks like, did the details come out nice and razor sharp on them?
Razor sharp. Like, that's the crazy thing, right? Because I got to be absolutely honest. When the idea came up that we would do PVC plastic, there was an association in my mind for what that looked like. And so
like classic WizKid stuff or something.
It's classic. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, you got some skeletons, maybe some extra flashing on this part, not high resolution. The fidelity is very low, and it's just not high detail. So in my mind, there's this bias. It's like hard plastic, hips. So you cut off a sprue, like that's the quality, right? That's the standard. And so when I saw one of these samples come in, right? I'm like, wait, hold on 1 second. Like that's not what I'm used to seeing when it comes to these miniatures at all, right? And so there's a good example of this. So this is a 3D print. Let's make it so it's not. There you go.
I want
this
one.
is a 3D print, but really it's just a larger version of the actual, which is right here.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Nuts. And so sold, because that's the first thing when you see a mini on the tabletop, like that sells you or doesn't sell you. If you see it, it looks cool, there's good detail, then you want to know more about it, right? If the mini doesn't grab you, then there's nothing else that will. That's a part of it, right? It could be the coolest lore, could be the coolest mechanics, but if the minis don't scream at you that they're awesome, it's really hard,
Yeah, very true.
And then couple that with the artwork, which feels like comic book, so it's like, all right, so we have the aesthetic down. Now, what about the rule set, right? That's really important, especially as seasoned gamers, where we've been playing for years. We played dozens and dozens of games. We've seen a lot of stuff, especially collectively as a community. So what's the best way of presenting a game to the community? Is it, hey guys, we're going to work really hard and develop a rule set and then present it to you and hope you like it? I mean, that's a massive risk, right? It's been done many times before. But how about you, community, us together? Let's collate a whole bunch of ideas. Yeah. And let's do this feedback thing where, what do you want to see? What do we want to experience together? And then let's present our idea that we've collectively designed. And so throughout the process of creating this rule set, there's feedback every step of the way. So when it's finalized and when the alpha becomes the beta rules, it's like you're a part of that process, because that's what we've done from the beginning.
Because you guys have already done a couple of videos already where you've done sort of like an initial demo game where you went through things, and then you sort of did a larger game and stuff like that. And all of those have all been with the pretense of like, we're going to take this to you guys in the community and sort of work with you to sort of see what works, what doesn't. And so while you've still got the sort of skeleton of the game there anyway, as you can see by some of the unit cards we've been seeing and the basics of how things work and that sort of boost system and tokens and things, you're still taking in a lot of feedback from the community, I take it, to sort of like expand on that and make the factions feel unique and all that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. And so that whole ethos of community driven, so that actually extends everywhere. That extended to the design process, the choice in the factions that were being produced, such as the Amari, the dwarves. Like right now, you're looking at the Gorkog. Like that's definitely influenced by Matt, right? Because Matt likes the bugs, and so for those who have watched the channel over the years, we know that he likes his alien bugs. Yeah. So, like this here specifically, since we're looking at this right now, just to comment on that for a minute, the aesthetic influence was, let's make bugs that look like it's organic, and that if they were to shoot projectiles, it would be like growths from them as opposed to like holding a weapon. So it's just like, it looks like it'd be devastating. It'd be like corrosive and poison and whatever alien thing that'd be like shot at you. So it feels more devastating and more inhuman to fight against. And so that was the idea there. More terrifying.
More terrifying, right? Because you're like, I don't know what that is. What's a plasma spitter? Like, what's going to happen when it like goes on my face? Goodbye face, right?
It's like a spa day.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so the lore, like speaking about the lore just for a moment, because the lore is like, once you like the aesthetic of something, you want to learn about it. You want to learn the details, right? Who are the Gorkog, for instance, right? What are they? Why should I care about them? Why should I care that the god of wrath, Navir, there's 8 gods and aspects, by the way, in the universe of Ravaged Star.
Of course, there are 8. Yeah.
And so, I mean, hey, when you walk the eightfold path of whatever that might be, it goes on forever. But yeah, there's 8 gods and aspects, one of which is Wrath, Navir, and Wrath spent thousands of years splicing different species together to create this horde of monstrosities. And so this whole race is under the control of a god. But as a default, they're actually just like any other race. Like these right here, you're looking at them right now, these flesh seekers, they're a bunch of Gork dogs. You can actually have one of these as a pet. You know, they have personalities.
Right.
So in the lore, that's reflected. Yeah. And also, this gives us opportunities to write stories about it from the perspective of the alien. Because normally stories where it's like, oh, you're fighting the alien, it's always this illusory, mysterious thing that you can't really relate to it. But one of these, I mean, how many of us feel like a dog out in the rain sometimes, so we can actually relate to one of these dudes.
Yeah.
So that just makes it more immersive, even for a bug faction.
Yeah.
So the default is you're under the control of a god of a higher power, and you can't help it. You're just a bug at this point. But you can detach yourself from that lore wise, and you can just run off with your own character.
So lots of opportunities for people to take things in their own creative direction, which is always nice. Which is what you want from a hobby. You want the ability to kind of game in the gaps and do all that kind of good stuff. Don't you? So yeah.
Absolutely, Ben. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. And that again is feedback, right? So the feedback is majority of players, which are majority casual. There's competitive aspects there, of course, but vast majority of gamers are casual. And what is the commonality between that? It's the immersion and it's the expression of imagination. So there's so much of us that we put into our armies. There's certain armies we collect for a certain reason. We apply our own color schemes for certain reasons. We feel certain ways about things. Things resonate with us specifically for various aspects, right? And we get to do that. But we're developing a framework where not only is that a thing that's encouraged, but it's a thing that can actually potentially be canonized. For instance, just today, I'll be posting the Commander contest where people can actually submit an idea for their own commander that exists within Ravaged Star.
Cool.
And it'll be collected, and then we'll come up with a bunch of the best ideas. And out of those ideas, they'll be voted on by the community, and the top voted one becomes a miniature that actually exists in the lore.
That's epic.
And the other cool thing about it too is because we do the battle reports in-house, anyone that comes here and plays a Ravaged Star battle report, it's automatically canonized in the overall lore. Because when we do narrative campaigns, which will be an open universe narrative campaign, people come in their own commander that they have spent time on developing the lore for. They get to present it in the universe of Ravaged Star.
Gives you some more stakes for what's happening beyond just playing some games, which I think is kind of cool. How do the Amari sort of fit into things? So obviously we've talked about the Gorkog a little bit, but sort of the Amari, what are they like as a faction in the game?
The Amari they are a remnant of what they once were 71 years ago. And so they were actually devastated. They were there was a genocide that took place here because of the Gorkog. So the god of Navir, the god of wrath, Navir, sicked the Gorkog on them in like billions.
Right.
Just killed billions, slaughtered them, right? So the remnant of their civilization is the military branch, which is the engineers of war, which are the Amari. So they are mechs, they are war machines, they're drone pilots, they're mech masters, they're rock and stone, they are space dwarves. Everything you see, even the design of their mechs they're dwarven faces on the actual mech. You could tell it's a dwarven mech, right? They have these scout units right here that can be controlled from a distance. So the mech master can control these from the other side of the battlefield. It's all wireless, so he can do that as much as he wants. And I'm all ADHD, man. When I'm looking around, I see stuff. So I'm looking at this particular guy and I remember the playtest games that we had. So much fun. You can move up. There's boost abilities. We haven't even talked about the game yet, right? So that itself is a lot of fun.
Oh, well, this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about it because there are some really interesting mechanics that you've sort of baked into the rules that are really fun, including, as you say, these boost mechanics. If you want to talk a little bit about those,
yeah. So as a default, it is a alternate activation token pull from bag system, right? So we have a token that represents each of our units. We put it in a bag, right? Yeah. And then we also have boost tokens on top of our unit tokens. And that's what we do. We take turns pulling tokens from a bag. So when we pull a token that represents the unit, we activate that specific unit. If we pull a boost token, then we can activate any unit in our faction and activate its boost ability, which you can see there at the bottom of the card. Each unit has a boost ability, and it just does something special. So you don't always get to do that. You do it when you boost that unit. And so that's that function, and it's a lot of fun. Doing that is that's the flavor of the unit, right? And you really look forward to seeing what you can do in the combinations that you can do it. And there's a built-in fog of war, because typically in games, we can plan it out, right? We're like, all right, so I'm going to move this here, which will do that, which might trigger that. You can spend a good 5-10 minutes, whatever, kind of puzzling your way through your turn. But in this, because you don't know if your next unit will be activated, it's hard to plan ahead. So it's very reactive. So it's like I might go again a second time, but then you might go. And you might go on the other side of the battlefield. So I'm like, okay, I got to shift there and kind of react there. But that boost token makes it so you have the flexibility of activating anything you want whenever it comes up. So you can more directly interact and react to something that's devastating you on your side. So it just lends itself well to really high engagement. I found that I don't look at my phone when I'm playing a game of Ravaged Star because it's like, all right, 30 seconds goes by and it's back to my turn. So you know, gone are the days that we're waiting 45 minutes for someone else to do their turn. In other gaming systems that might exist that do that.
It does look like everything's baked in really well. So, you know, just being able to have your stats on stat cards and stuff, I really like.
The top right there is like, you have 4 stats. That's it. You have your movement there on the first one there. You have your health, your wounds right there. And then you have your defense and then your leadership. So 4 stats as a default, every unit. And then you have your weapon specific statistics, right? So those vary per unit card, but and it's easy to kind of like, the idea is that there's going to be a quick start guide for when you buy the box, so that when you buy it, you're literally playing within minutes. So you get the flavor of it, right? And the battle packs specifically, or the 2-player starter sets. The idea is to get you and a friend, or you and someone else into it at the same time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So one of the things I really liked about what you've done is you went for D10s rather than the sort of like not established D6 system. I think it was really cool. And mainly because it kind of flowed into the idea that, it seemed from my point of view that everything felt that you're trying to remove barriers to entry. And so running with a D10 just makes things immediately easy for you to work out things like percentages and things like that as I was reading through. And just if you wanted to halve things, well, it's just half and half and all that kind of thing. That just seemed like a really nice little touch to throw in. And a D10 just gives you more possibilities as well when it comes to game mechanics, which was a really cool touch. So yeah,
absolutely agree with that. It was very satisfying mentally to be like, all right, that's +1. That means that's an extra 10% chance that I'll be successful with my accuracy there. And it's like oddly satisfying because like with the D6 system, which is satisfying by itself because there's something about rolling those D6s, man, where maybe it's the shape of the cube or something. I don't know. But it's like, that's the most common experience. And so when you're trying to math it out, you're like, all right, that's 1 in 6 chance, which is like, what is that? 17%. And so you're like kind of doing this stuff, but the D10, you're right.
Probability brain.
It's much easier. Like when you get +2 to something, an extra 20%, like for some reason, it just like clicks better. Right? It's more fluid back and forth. And then like modifiers can stack, which is super satisfying, right? Oh, that's far away and it's behind cover. Oh, okay. So that's a -2 to my accuracy. So it's like things stack in a logical way, but that is full credit to Matt. So Matthew Inhouse, who is like collecting all the rules, and he's been doing it for 16 years, man. He's written over 70 narrative campaigns, which have custom rules that are grabbing and borrowing from various rule systems. And I mean, he's been a professional gamer all that time developing rule systems, right? And he literally gets people into games. Like I've known Matt since I was 5, and he got me into role-playing games. He got me into tabletop games. Risk. I played Risk first time at his house. So it's like, it makes sense. And even now, that's what he does. He gets people into the games. He's good at the rules, and he's excellent with articulation of the rules, right? Like, what do I do? I show up and I corn forward and I watch explosions. Like for me personally to develop the rules, it doesn't make sense. I know my place. I get excited about plastic on YouTube. That's my place, right? His place is where it is, right? He's the master of the forge. We got the forge fiends. We're doing a 3D print, sending out promotions, right? Getting all the everything. We're spreading the word of Ravaged Star, right? And he's developing the rules, and it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I would say in that case, then, does it feel to both of you guys like, is this the game that Matt always wanted to make, and is this the game that you always wanted to play? Does it feel like that sits well in your like mind? Or
you know what? Yeah, okay, yeah. Let's go with that because it feels right. It's like, you know, Matt makes the rules. I like to break the rules, and so it's like it's the perfect yin and yang, right? It's like it's honestly, that's a very good way of putting it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's basically all of this passion and everything else that you've built up over all of these years solidified into these lovely plastic miniatures and these rules that you're bringing to the tabletop for everyone to play with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's an expression of that, right? And so, yeah.
Look, there's a little question. Can you give us a quick rundown of the actual structure of a turn, how it actually plays? Because I assume you want this to play pretty quick, back and forth. You were saying like 30-second turn. So how does a turn work? Pull the token, and then what are we doing?
So you pull a token, you put it by the unit that's activated, and each unit has 2 actions. You can move as an action, shoot as an action, and then there's double action things, right? Like charging is a double action. Running is a double action. And so that's it. If units can be shaken, so there's certain weapons that cause stunning, and then you make a leadership test to see if you're shaken. And if you're shaken, you only get 1 action when it activates, right? The boost tokens can nullify the shaken, and then it just activates as per normal. Or if you put a boost on a unit, it gets to activate its boost ability if it wasn't already shaken. And then you do that, and then you reconcile each unit on either side until there's no more tokens back in the bag. And if we're playing an objective game, which it'll be scenario-based, objective-based, and we'll come up with a number of different ways of playing and different mission types. At the end of what right now is 4 rounds, that's what we've been experimenting with. And of 4 rounds, whoever has the most victory points comes out the winner. So in a very basic structure of how the game works, that's how it works. Nice. And typically it's and we've experimented with different stuff too. It's like at the end of each round, we count up however many victory points we have according to who's holding objectives. But we've also experimented with, we put in an additional token into the bag, which is an objective token. And every time it's pulled, we actually count up victory points mid-turn, right? In addition to the default at the end of turn. So that becomes variable. We don't know when that's happened. It could be none. Or it could be up to 3, because if it's infinite, it can be like, oh, we keep on pulling it out. And
you're counting numbers forever.
Yeah. So that was really fun, because it's like, there's this element of like, oh man, I'm in a bad position right now. I don't want that extra token to be pulled. Right. It's like, wait, I'm in a good position. I want it to be pulled. So there's like that element on top of everything else.
It
was a lot of fun. Yeah. A lot of fun and stimulating.
So if somebody's diving into the Game Fan campaign, what kind of options do they have for sort of pledging and getting stuck into this and picking up different miniatures? You mentioned sort of 2-player start sets and that kind of stuff. What are some of the options that people can choose from?
So one of the options are, so there's many options first off. So if we're starting here at the top, let's start it here. Galaxy at War Pledge. Yeah. This is a collection of all of the larger sets that we're offering in this campaign, the new sets, I should say. These do not include the original Veil-touched war packs stuff. From the original campaign. So those who are brand new to this campaign, Ravaged Star Tabletop Miniature Wargame is the second campaign for Ravaged Star. This, what you're looking at right now, Galaxy at War Pledge, is all the new big boxes. This doesn't include some of the extras, like there's a extra follower mini that you get when you pledge. There's 3 additional characters you get when you pledge, not included in this Galaxy War. Those happen in addition to. There's also each individual war pack that you can get. If you wanted just one, you can. You have that option as well. So we have 2 Amari specific war packs. They're each only Amari miniatures, only the space dwarves.
Yep.
And then you also have the Gorkog, which are the space bugs. And then what we're also including is each Veil-touched, which is the original kind of chaos inspired war packs from the original campaign. Every war pack from the original campaign we're including in this campaign as well.
Brilliant.
Because the molds are already completed in the factory. And so people who didn't have a chance to pledge during the first campaign, we're making available here. And people who are just discovering it, they're like, well, it's a product that already exists that we can just simply add to the roster of products, because that's the idea. Over time, we just add more and more.
Yeah.
So that's the new stuff. And we are offering other pledges that kind of separate that stuff out and add it together. So there's a massive pledge that includes every single big box, which is just like, the Gods Unleashed or whatever it's called. It's massive, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the crazy part, man. Many people are getting that one because we as wargamers, we know that it's not uncommon for us to just drop copious amounts of quid, coin, cash, whatever you want to call it, right? Blood, sweat, and tears, because it's our escape. Like we just dive into this stuff. We immerse ourselves, right? And so it's one thing for there to be a board game with one thing that people buy, and it's another to dive into a war game where there's legions you can swim in, right? So that's what this is. So going for a moment now, describing the support packs. What these are is when, so going back, there's a lot of stuff. ADHD, once again, okay.
There is a lot of stuff,
So if you want to scroll up, if we want to talk about specific things that, let's try to find, here we go. This one here, the Siege of Ankar.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the 3 2-player starter sets that we have. And each one has 2 armies in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can engage this way. You get this one comes with every single gaming aid. So this will come with a rule book, some dice, some tokens, measuring tools. So you everything you need to play in a box here, right? Mm-hmm. And there's 3 of them that we're offering. So we're offering a Gorkog and a Amari one, a Veil Touched and a Gorkog one, and there is one more which is a Veil Touched and an Amari one, which is floating around here somewhere.
Somewhere in this massive list of boxes.
It's somewhere in this massive list. Now, right here, that Gorkog Plasma Fury Support Pack pledge. Mm-hmm. So just to explain what that is for a second. Some people, this is feedback, by the way. So a lot of feedback was, hey, I see the 2-player starter sets, and I like the Amari Space Doors, but honestly, man, I don't want to get those bugs. So could you make the minis available separated from the starter packs? Right? That's a very Wargamer question, right?
Yes.
And so here's the thing. We are Wargamers. We get it, right? So it's all right, let's figure it out. Let's see what we can do here. Talk to the factory, talk to the mold, all this stuff. Figure it out, right? That's what we do. We crunch the math and we just make it possible. So the Gorkog Plasma Fury Support Pack, that includes just the Gorkog Space Bugs from the starter sets. So if you don't want to get the other stuff, that's fine. Now, these don't include the gaming aids and all that stuff that you would get, because we're offering that as its own specific thing. Rule book, tokens. It's a $15 pledge that you can get, because there's a lot of war packs, right? And for us to put a rule book and dice and all that in each war pack.
Your costs will go nuclear.
The cost goes away. It becomes unreasonable because at the end of the day, this does need to be profitable for us to fast track our way to retail, because that's the ultimate goal, is retail. Because we started as a local gaming store, right? We support local hobby. So we understand the importance of local thriving communities. And if that isn't supported, then game dies. So we're not going to, we won't be selling it direct, right? It's all just going to be fueled through distribution to the trade, right to the stores. And then that'll be any video that we make. It's pick it up at your local gaming store. It's a way better thing to say than come to the website and try to fuel this way and develop this mechanism that we'll have to start a branch of MiniWarGaming for, which honestly, let's use the existing mechanisms that are operating really well and just support that. Because if a distributor is happy because retail trade is getting stuff from them, then they're going to want to support it better too, right? So it's they get the stuff out faster, they get the stock and it's there. And so that just, again, it helps everything, it trickles down. And so that's what this is. This is something that's available. But if you want those specific minis,
you can just get them.
The price is more though, right? The price does come out more because there's been, again, the crunchiness, the math. So there's been some Wargamers who feedback is hey, if I get this, it comes out to be a little more than if I were to get the 2 starter sets. And how does that make sense? Well, how it makes sense is there's a minimum quantities that need to be produced at the factory, and if they don't hit those minimums, then the price per unit goes up. And so in a very literal sense, makes less sense to do it that way because it costs more, but we're willing to forego some of that extra profit to cater to really the gaming experience of it, especially at the very beginning when we're trying to kickstart the idea of this. Because really we want, that's a barrier to entry right there, right? So it's if I'm a wargamer and I'm only interested in this, I don't want to have to navigate through the frustration of getting stuff that I don't want. I don't want to pay for stuff I don't want to pay for, right? So boom, done. That's the solution to that. And
very cool.
And then it's really like we try to be as transparent as humanly possible, because it's like everything is front facing, man. When we say something, like when something goes wrong, who do they look to for the solution for that, right? It's like Dave, Matt, what's going on? How do we fix this, right? So that's why it's every step of the way. It's like, we are going to fix this, and whatever the potential problem might be. And it's and any suggestions on how we can do that, because many minds are better than one or two.
Very true. Yeah.
Right. And there's other people in the industry who have like gone through similar things, and other companies that we work closely with. And so, there's a lot of good support from both the community and the other brands and retailers and manufacturers of games. So it's great.
It definitely seems like it's gone down very well already as a campaign, which is obviously great to see. So we've learned about the miniatures, we've learned about the rules, we've learned about the lore and some of the background you're working on. One final question then, Dave. I mean, we could talk to you forever, but one final question. When the campaign is done and all of the miniatures start getting sent out to people and all that kind of thing, and you're working through the rules and that kind of stuff, what would be the big next step that you're working on for like where you go? Is it another faction? Is it something entirely different from that? Or what's the thing beyond the Game Found campaign that you're looking at the moment?
I love this question. By the way, because it's like, it's so expansive, which is very symbolic actually of everything that's kind of going on with MiniWarGaming proper, right? Like this is a complete pivot to our business and what we do. For a very long time, it's content creation, and now it's game creation in addition to content creation. So where do we go from here? We explore the cosmos as the Veil Touch do. That's their lore, right? They're space explorers, and they chart the galaxy, and that's what the Veil is. The Veil is the shimmering wall that Davik has found, and he's like, "What's that wall?" Okay, the Vanguard are like, "Don't go through that wall, man." And Davik is like, "Well, I have a propensity to rebel at every step of the way. So you tell me not to go, it's going to make me want to go more."
My hand is already through the veil, man.
Hey, guys,
all right. Don't go through the wall. All right,
man. Might as well go the rest of the way, right? Yeah. So, and that's what the Veil is, which is actually a prison for another god, a goddess of fear, Strock. Everyone becomes touched by the Veil. In other words, influenced by Strock. And then they come out, and they're now preaching the word of Strock and spreading fear in the galaxy. Right? So what's our next step? To spread fear in the galaxy. No. But our next step is to just make more factions. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Right? Like, what are we talking about? Space, vampire, elf, undead faction, maybe? Maybe some orc space and something there. Maybe an elemental race. So I was talking to Liam Dempsey yesterday, and we're talking about potential factions, right? Because that's what it's a fun thing to just talk about ideas and what you'd want to see. And he's talking about his thing, which is like a space Viking specific. It's like, it's a live stream, so people have seen it. I'm not giving away a secret. It's a secret live stream that was public.
I want a big, brutal space monkey army.
Space monkey.
I love it. See, that's what I'm talking about, because it's like, if there's pocket dimensions that exist, which there are, if there's magic, which there is, then really, your imagination takes you in you're in that cosmic sandbox. You can build whatever castle you want, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what you do in your imagination. And if it's shared online, which is encouraged, then it's just this swirling ball of like cosmic energy that we're all contributing to. And then whatever like maelstroms of bolts go out different places, they hit where they hit, and then stuff happens. Stuff is manifested, right? 3-step process: thinking, speaking, doing. Well, we've thought about it. We're talking a lot about it right now. We've done it a little bit, and we're doing it a lot more. So that's the idea.
Brilliant. So the Veil is your oyster, some might say. But yes, if you are diving into this, make sure to go and check out the links down below in the comments to Ravaged Star from the folks at MiniWarGaming. It looks amazing. Can't wait to see where it goes next. Thanks for chatting with us, Dave. It's been brilliant. We're going to take a quick swish, and when we come back, we'll be looking at some more crowdfunding campaigns.